Welcome to the Women Lighthouse podcast, your friendly guide through all the ups and downs of life. We're here to remind you that every woman has the strength to take charge of her journey and make her dreams come true. Each week, we'll share heartwarming stories and helpful tips from amazing women who have faced their own challenges and come out stronger. Tune in, get inspired, and let's start this exciting journey towards achieving your dreams together. The Women Lighthouse, your guide to a brighter tomorrow. Hello, ladies. You're welcome to today's episode of the Women Lighthouse podcast. It's great to have you on the show today. Today, I'll be beginning a two-part series on childhood obesity and our role as mothers and women in reducing the impact of childhood obesity. So basically, in today's episode, I'll be highlighting certain things that we tend to do as mothers that can predispose or make our children at risk of developing obesity. And in our next episode, I will tell you 10 ways in which you can encourage your children to be more physically active in order to reduce the risk of developing childhood obesity. So before I go into the details of today's episode, I want to begin by saying that based on the World Health Organization, childhood obesity has actually become more common. It has actually tripled in the past 4 decades, and millions of children and adolescents have been affected globally. And before, we would think about this as a problem that was commoner in developed countries because of their quality of life. But if you really look at things now in developing countries, of which Nigeria is in that category, our quality of life has gradually become more sedentary and also filled with the wrong kinds of diet. And these are actually things that predispose children and even humans generally, individuals, to obesity. But our focus for today is basically on obesity amongst children. So I just want to share some statistics with you. And based on the National Survey of Children's Health in 2002 to 2003, that survey stated that about 17% of children aged 6 years to 17 years actually had obesity. And also, from this research, it's been observed that the older you get, the more at risk you are of developing obesity. And usually at age 15, that's like the average highest age in which children are more at risk of developing obesity. Because if you really look at it, as children grow, when they are younger, most times children are more physically active. It can be very hard to get a child under 5 years old to stop running when they're supposed to be walking, for instance. They always want to be on the move. They always want to explore. In fact, if you look at a toddler, for instance, they prefer to run. In fact, once a baby, let me use the word a baby, or an infant can walk, once they can stand and they can walk, the timing between when they can walk and when they can run is very short. That's how eager they are to explore their environment. And so are children under 5 years of age. They are so eager to move around. I know how hard it is for me to get my kids to stop running, how scared I am, and how, oh, mommy, I want to go outside and play, that kind of stuff, and all that. So naturally, a child between the age of 1 to 5 years, they are naturally physically active. But as the child advances from that age and goes into their teen years, you will notice that they become more sedentary because of exposure in school. Most times they are seated because they have to do their school work, or most times they are glued to their phone, but they actually do not naturally engage in activities that would make them less sedentary. So that is why you notice that at age 15, that's where you have an average, a higher risk of developing obesity. So now let's go right into the reason for this episode. So in this episode, I want to share with you 10 things that you are most likely currently doing that is going to make your child at risk of developing childhood obesity. So let's shake some tables here. So the first thing I would say is increased screen time. Most times as parents, especially when our kids, especially younger kids, for instance, they are misbehaving, they are disturbing, they are too active, or you take them out and they just can't seem to be still. The natural inclination will be to just hand them your phone to keep them busy. Or exposure to cartoon. You know that once you put on the TV and leave children in front of the cartoon, except you are the one that consciously goes to regulate their screen time, they can stay there for hours. What does an increased screen time have to do with childhood obesity? Once your child sits in one position and is fixed on the TV, chances that your child would move around is less, meaning your child will be more sedentary, and that would increase the risk of childhood obesity in the long run. So you're already forming a habit of a sedentary lifestyle. So that's one thing most likely you are doing that can lead to obesity in your child in the long run. The next thing is not engaging your children or your child in house chores. Especially when you have a house help, the house help is the one that does everything. You hardly engage your kids to do things, because for every time you engage your kids in chores, it helps them to move around. Imagine if you have a house, for instance, that has a staircase and you're upstairs and you tell your child, like maybe 5 or 10 times in a day, to go get something downstairs. It means your child would have climbed that staircase up and down 10 times. But imagine if your child is always seated, doesn't move around. If you are to measure the step count of your kids, just imagine a child that is less sedentary or not engaging in activities within the house, because in the house there will definitely be things that need to be done. Bring this, bring that, go to the kitchen and all that. So all those things help to increase your children's step count and keep them more physically active. The third thing that most likely you're doing that would lead to obesity in the long run in your child is when you limit outdoor play. I know this is quite challenging for us as mothers, especially if you have younger children, you are a working mom, you don't have a house help, there's a lot of demand, you have a side hustle, you just want some time for yourself, you are exhausted, and your child comes to meet you and says, "Oh, mom, I want to go outside to play." The chances that you would say no is very high, because you just want to have time for yourself. You're exhausted and you can't leave your child unsupervised because you don't know what your child is going to be doing. So this is commoner among mothers that have younger kids, maybe 5 years and below. So when you limit outdoor play for your kids, it reduces the chances for them to be less sedentary, and in the long run can lead to obesity. The fourth thing is increased consumption of processed foods. Now it's so common, snacks, donuts, pizza, cakes, sweets, juice. Imagine when you're packing your child's lunchbox, as you're putting the food and water, you add biscuits and juice, because most times, most schools, they have two breaks, a short break and a long break. The first break, they take snacks. The longer break, they take food. I know I was guilty of this. I used to give my kids like packet drink, 5 times in a week. Like that's when they're going to school, 5 times. And at some point on a second thought, I was like, wow, this is so not good. So rather than just cut it off, I decided to reduce it. So from 5 times, it was every other day. If I give on Monday, I don't give on Tuesday. I give on Wednesday, I don't give on Thursday. I give on Friday. And at some point, I completely cut it. So when I'm buying, I can buy only biscuits. And the biscuits shouldn't be sugary. I buy only biscuits and I give them with water. They should just drink water. Then another thing I was guilty of, anytime I come back from work, there's this lady that sells snacks in my office. And you know how you'd want to give your kids something when you're picking them up. And I trained them in that way to always expect something from me. So it's biscuits, another biscuit, or after the one I've given them to take with them to co-op, then I'll now buy maybe donuts or something. On a second thought, I had to stop it. So first, so that it's not a habit for them, and secondly, it wasn't like healthy. So I had to reduce it, like I said, maybe twice a week or so. I could get it for them when they're not expecting and all that. So that's one habit or one thing you're doing that would most likely predispose your child to having obesity in the long run. Eating of fast food, sugary snacks, processed foods, and all that. So the fifth thing is late bedtimes. In all honesty, when we were growing up, a child should not be awake by 8 o'clock. But in this generation, in this dispensation, in all honesty, what time does your child go to bed? Why is this important? Your child should be able to get 8 to 10 hours of sleep because it helps with metabolism for your child. There's something we call basal metabolic rate. That's when the body is at a resting state. There's metabolism going on. When you say metabolism, food is being broken down. So that fat that is in the body, because the brain needs glucose, that's sugar, you understand? The brain needs glucose to function. And the body, usually when you take in carbohydrates, the carbohydrates are broken down into glucose and the body uses the glucose. But when there's excess glucose, the body stores that glucose as protein and as fat. So when your body is at a rested state, you are sleeping, you are definitely not eating. So you're not taking in extra carbohydrates. And by the time the glucose in your blood reduces, where does the body go to? The body goes to those fat deposits in the body and begins to break the fats and protein down to be able to produce glucose that the brain will use to function. You understand? Because the brain is like the center of the body, controls everything. It controls the heart, it controls the lungs, it controls the kidneys, the livers, and everything. So if your child is getting adequate number of sleeps, like 8 to 10 hours, while your child is resting, that fat is being broken down, protein is being broken down to produce glucose, and it keeps your child fit. But when your child is not resting, once you are awake, stress hormones are released once you're awake and physically active, because the child will not just be awake and just be staring. He may be playing or something. Once you're physically active and your body is not in a rested state, stress hormones are released. And once stress hormones are released, those stress hormones reduce the metabolism in the body. So instead of fats being broken down, stress hormones too will trigger other hormones that would help to ensure that glucose is being used in more quantities than it should be. So that in the long run would also lead to obesity. Also, when your child is not getting enough sleep, certain other hormones are being activated. So for instance, now there's a hormone called ghrelin, called the hunger hormone. That hormone is triggered and it's in increased quantities when you are not getting enough sleep. So you can imagine when that hormone is triggered, obviously you'll become hungry. That's why if you notice when you stay up late at night, chances that you'll be snacking on different things is there. But when you are sleeping, there's no how in your sleep you will be looking for what to eat. So also, there's a Another hormone that is responsible for making you feel full, that hormone is called leptin. So the leptin hormone is in reduced quantity while the ghrelin hormone is in increased quantity when your child or any human is not getting enough sleep. Also, the release of stress hormones, like I said, commonly cortisol, will also increase your appetite and your need to want to eat. Because when you are stressed, for instance, you are using up energy. So your brain will tell your stomach that you need enough glucose. So you need enough glucose to be able to meet up with this stress. So your appetite too would also increase. So those are also certain things. Also, insulin, when you are not getting enough sleep, insulin would tell the cells in your body that we need sugar, or like I said now, just to be able to meet up with the stress, that the body needs enough sugar. So that also would make the fat cells less responsive to insulin and would also increase the risk of diabetes and also obesity in the long run. So you can see the relationship between sleep and stress and hunger hormones and insulin and diabetes, and in the long run, obesity. So another thing that you are doing that can cause your child to have obesity in the long run is when you give your children large servings of food. You don't regulate. You know how a child will eat first round. Oh, mommy, I want more. You give the second one. Oh, mommy, I want more. You give the third round. Oh, mommy, You don't regulate and train your child's appetite for food. So if you are, and again, it also has to do with the quality of food, the servings, that's the measurements, and the quality. Some children don't even take a lot of water. Imagine if you take a lot of water in between meals, you're already full. So even when you are eating, your appetite is sort of regulated, and the quantity of food you would eat too is sort of regulated. So when you are not controlling the portions that your child takes, your child can always go to the pot and take more and more and more. They are not doing that child any good. So another thing that you can be doing to cause obesity in your child in the long run is when you as a mom, you are so busy to prepare your kids' meals. If you're always buying from fast food, or now schools, the way schools operate, all these private schools, they will tell you, oh, we serve food, we serve breakfast and lunch, and you just pay for food and all that. What is the quality of food that they are serving? So you are not the one preparing your meals. You are either buying from outside or paying for it. And you can do that every now and then, but when it becomes like a routine and a habit, it's hard for you to check the quality of food that your child or your children are being exposed to. Also, when you indulge your kids by giving them what they want all the time. Oh, mommy, I want biscuits, you give. Oh, mommy, I want ice cream, you give. Oh, mommy, I want cheese balls, you give. Oh, mommy, I want this, you give. You don't know how to say no to your child to make your child happy. You can afford it. Oh, why not? You buy all sorts. There are sometimes you have the money, but you can choose to be frugal so that your child also learns self-control. Your child also learns that, okay, I need to be satisfied with what I have. So when you indulge your kids every now and then by always giving them what they want, even when you know that it is not healthy, both for their character and for their health, but you keep doing it, that also can lead to obesity in the long run. And lastly, exposing your kids to stressful situations. It could be physically, maybe in their school, for instance. There are sometimes this issue of school runs where your child has to be in school on or before 7:30. You are rushing, the child doesn't get enough. So imagine a child that doesn't sleep early and has to be up maybe around 6 to prepare for school. So the child is not getting adequate sleep. Sometimes the kids have to even wake up earlier than that 6, maybe as early as 5. That is already a stressful situation for the child. So the child is not getting enough sleep. The child has to sleep maybe late around 10, sometimes 11, and wake up around 5 or 6. Then you rush to take the child to school. Then the child is there. School maybe finishes around 2. The child will do lesson. Then after lesson till 3. Because the parent hasn't finished early from work, there is after school hours till maybe like 4 or 5. When would the child have to be physically active? Then also emotionally within the house, within the home, when there's emotional stress, if there are certain stressors within the home emotionally for the child, maybe there's a dysfunctionality in the family, things are not going on well, either between husband and wife or between siblings or something, there's just that emotionally stressful situation. It increases stress hormone in the child, and in the long run, all those hormonal patterns come into play, and the child in the long run at risk of obesity. Or sometimes this even exposes the child to some mental health issues. The child gradually begins to be exposed to post-traumatic stress disorder, has to be binging on food to get over things. So it's especially when you're talking about teenage children, because at that teenage level, the teenagers are going through a lot of things, like a lot of changes in their body, a lot of changes in their relationship, their environment, everything. So all those stressors that the kids are being exposed to and they are not being controlled or managed properly can also in the long run lead to obesity. Why am I saying all this? There are certain things we do unintentionally, in quotes, for the good of our children because we love them. But we do not know that it has a ripple effect and in the long run can give rise to issues that could affect our kids. So for instance, let me use myself as an example. I am type 1 diabetic. I was diagnosed at, I think, 17 years. And there was this thing my dad used to do unintentionally, exposing to drinks and all that. And he did it out of love for his kids. But there is a family history of diabetes, and that predisposed me to developing diabetes at an early age. That's why this topic is also important and passionate for me, because I am speaking also from the standpoint of experience, both personally and from the standpoint of expertise as a medical doctor. So with these things I have shared, and there may even be more things, what are other things you think we do as mothers that can predispose our kids to being obese? Please share in the comment section and let's rub minds together so that we can promote healthy living amongst our children and save our children the stress of having to deal with a health issue that would have been avoided. In our next episode, I'll be sharing with you 10 ways in which you can promote a more active lifestyle in your child, because we want to reduce sedentary lifestyles so that they are not at risk of obesity. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of the Women Lighthouse podcast. We really hope today's episode has given you some great tools, resources, and a boost of confidence to take charge of your journey. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe on our YouTube channel and hit that notification bell so you never miss an update. You can also follow us on our social media handle for even more tips and a wonderful community that's all about supporting your growth. Join us next time for more uplifting stories and encouraging insights. Until we meet again, keep shining bright, stay inspired, and embrace your unique path to a better tomorrow.